Welcome, Archbishop Hussam from Jerusalem. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Obviously, I'm based in Wellington, New Zealand, a long way from Jerusalem, but we so appreciate you just giving us a bit of your time to talk about your experiences. Obviously, every night our news feeds catch us up on Gaza, Palestine, Israel. But thank you for joining us. I'm really interested, though. What's some of your history, Archbishop?
And thank you, first of all, Archbishop Justin, for this wonderful hosting. And through you, I would love to send my best wishes, my greetings from the holy city of Jerusalem to all our friends in New Zealand and specifically in the Anglican Church there, and to you and my two other brothers, Sione and Don, for your leadership in that wonderful part of the world. And I am really looking forward to being with you in December, God willing, on my visit, which will be the first visit actually. It's long been waited, but I'm really delighted to be part of your community in December. As a bishop myself, my journey began in the Holy Land in Galilee. I was born and raised up in Nazareth area, and grew up there. And then for my theological training, I went to South Africa, graduated, and then came back to serve two congregations in the West Bank, St. Matthew's and St. Philip's, Anglican churches in the West Bank, in the north part. Then I was moved to Jerusalem in 2005 as pastor canon for the Arabic-speaking congregation in Jerusalem at the cathedral, St. George's. And ever since, I've been in Jerusalem based because I became the dean in 2012, and then I was elected as bishop in 2020, just at the outbreak of COVID-19, which you can imagine, the beginning of my episcopacy during that time. So 5 years, 6 years almost into the office of a bishop, and it has been, I have to say, a blessing, a major blessing for me and my family. I have a family, my wife Rafa is an industrial engineer, works with kindergarten students at St. George's School here next door. 3 children, Wadia, Luis, and Krista, 2 in university, 1 still at school. And, like my parents still living in the north, and my in-laws also in Nablus in Palestine. So my family is hybrid. Even though I'm Palestinian originally, but I come from Israel, so I'm an Israeli citizen, whereas my wife is Palestinian because she comes from the West Bank, therefore Palestine. I have to say my passion is youth ministry. I have been all along in youth conferences and camp and leadership, building capacity among young people, and that continues to be my passion, working with the young people. And we have a very thriving ministry among our youth. We have a lovely team both in Israel, Palestine, and in Jordan with Canon George and Canon Nael, the vicar in Nazareth. So I have to say that despite the difficulty that we live in because of what has been going on, not only for the last 2 years, but even before. But I have to say, being in Jerusalem is such a blessing, in the homeland of Jesus, serving in the places where Jesus walked and talked and preached, and where he was born, died, and rose again. It's just, for us, it feels like walking in the footsteps of Jesus, not only metaphorically for all of us as Christians, wherever we may be, but also physically in the homeland where Jesus grew up. So it's a blessing for us. And thank you for allowing us to share this experience with your people and your loved ones. And we are grateful for our bonds together, our partnership in the gospel, wherever we are, even in the West or in the East or in the North or in the South. We are all committed to the same cause, and that is to bring hope, peace, and love among our people.
I didn't realize you had a youth background. I have done lots of youth work and youth ministry myself, and that's my passion. So I didn't realize we shared that passion. That is lovely. And actually, I had Dr. Lamar on talking to her a few weeks ago, and she'd just been taken a youth camp, and she herself had been doing youth work recently. So that was she obviously also. So that's another lovely point of connection. Now
Yes.
you mentioned that you're Israeli citizen, but your wife isn't. What is that? How does that work? What does that mean for you both?
So basically, we need to imagine the land, the Holy Land, before 1948. It used to be called Palestine under the British mandate. So people moved freely, and even before that, before the First World War, it was all an open land from Syria to Lebanon because it was under the Ottoman rule. So basically, people moved around. They have, like, even though like they are kind of multiple cultural or ethnic or religious backgrounds, but people belong to the same area, so to speak. Now, more specifically, before 48 or even before 67, the Six-Day War, when the land was divided into the West Bank and Israel in 48. Now my parents and my family, we lived in Nazareth in Galilee, which became part of Israel proper, the state of Israel, and we all embraced Israeli nationalities and passport. Now those who are in the West Bank never assumed or never had Israeli citizenship, so they were Jordanians before 67. They became Palestinian holders of ID. Under Oslo, they started having Israeli passport. So therefore, their nationality is separate to those from Galilee or in Tel Aviv or Israel area. So West Bank, Gaza are more appropriately Palestinians, even by nationality today. Whereas historically, me and my wife, we belong to the same nation. We are both Arab, Christian, Palestinian origin. So that's basically a little bit of the background.
So does that mean that when you're traveling, is that difficult because you're a citizen? Does that mean you can travel easily together overseas, or is there problems there?
Now there are problems, like there are problems because she has to have lots of visas, lots of permits in order to travel. Whereas I can just jump on a plane and travel. If I decide I want to leave tomorrow, I can leave easily. Maybe I need some ETA or something for some of the countries, but for her, it has to be visas, it has to be permits to travel and leave the country, or even if you want to fly from the airport, we need also permits for her to leave from Tel Aviv airport. So that's kind of, it's
Wow, that's
complicated.
complex. That's complex for you.
It's
And what
complex, yeah.
about, does you live in Jerusalem? Is her living in Jerusalem straightforward?
For the most part, it's straightforward, especially now, she has like, more adequate papers. She has like a permanent residency. But before that, before I became a bishop, she had to stay here on permits because we have applied for family unification because as an Israeli citizen, I can do family unification for her. But because since the second intifada in 2003, the family of family unification.
What's an intifada? What was that word?
Which normally like.
Since you said since the second intifada. Could you explain what you mean by
Okay.
that?
Yeah, so in 2000, another uprising. When I say intifada, it's an uprising. It's of Palestinians, especially after the provoking visit of Ariel Sharon into the Temple Mount. So there have been really a lot of turmoil, lots of fighting, and also demonstrations, and it was really kind of tough. And during that time, because of the violence that happened, I think the Oslo Accords were endangered of not only disappearing, but all falling apart altogether. And because of that, the Israelis took a major step, to cancel and to freeze the family unification of Israeli and Palestinian couples. So they are no longer entitled to bring their spouses to become Israeli citizens because it has been regarded as enemy state or enemy area. That's the background of it. That's the background of it.
Was your family Anglican when you grew up?
Yes, so I myself, a fifth generation Anglican myself.
Wow.
And my parents go back, maybe to the kind of mid 19th century. And before that, we were Greek Orthodox, so local Greek Orthodox. You know,
So
but there is a
very briefly,
Yes.
what's the history of the Anglican Church in Jerusalem or in your land? What's the history, very briefly?
Yeah, so basically the Anglican presence in Jerusalem began in 1841 with the mission to evangelize Jews, and it was the Society of the London Society for Promoting Christianity Among Jews, now known as CMJ. But then, you know, like the ethos changed a little bit with the new leadership, and then CMS took over the mission in Jerusalem and began to establish the diocese, parishes, institutions. And since that time, we have 28 congregations across the diocese, which is like Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. And we have over 30 institutions between hospitals, schools, medical institutions, rehabilitation centers. So that's the background. You know, for a long time, Anglicans did not feel that they need to send missionaries to the land where it all began, like to the Holy Land, because they're already Christians. But then, you know, the motives were different a little bit. And as you know, like we know, like in the mid-19th century, there've been revival movements, including Africa and Latin America and other places where evangelism was quite big at that time. So we were put on the agenda, but for different reasons, so to speak.